What actually happens when 20% of the world's oil just vanishes overnight? It's a massive, world-altering question. But here's the thing, it's not some hypothetical scenario anymore. We are literally living through it right now.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. What we're going to do in this session is track the incredible domino effect of the 2026 global energy crisis. We'll be connecting the dots all the way from macro geopolitics and massive international shipping lane conflicts straight down to the exact price you pay when you fill up at your local gas station.
Here is a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start off with the Hormuz choke point, look at the global economic shockwave, examine Asia's energy crunch, track the ripple effects across continents, and finally, dig into South Africa's record hikes.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, the Hormuz choke point, turning off the world's energy faucet.
Just look at the sheer scale of this, 20%. Because of the 2026 war involving Iran and the US-Israel coalition, the Strait of Hormuz was closed, and that one single, narrow geographic strait freezing up disrupted an astonishing 1/5 of the entire globe's total oil supply. I mean, really think about that. 1/5 of the energy that powers our ships, our trucks, our factories, just gone from the market almost instantly. It's exactly why the International Energy Agency characterized this as the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market.
And this is where the panic became incredibly official. The state-owned giant Qatar Energy actually declared force majeure. Now, if you aren't familiar with that term, it basically means an unforeseeable circumstance that legally prevents someone from fulfilling a contract. Honestly, it's the legal equivalent of just pulling the emergency brake on the global supply chain. Because those massive LNG tankers literally could not leave the Gulf, Qatar had to halt gas liquefaction entirely. So the global panic was officially triggered.
Which brings us to part two, global economic shockwave, the immediate market fallout.
140%. Let that staggering number sink in for a second. When critical energy infrastructure, like Qatar's Ras Laffan complex, was hit, completely removing 17% of Qatar's LNG production capacity, well, the markets didn't just react, they absolutely exploded. The spot prices for liquefied natural gas in Asia spiked by over 140%. We aren't talking about a gradual inflationary creep here. This was an overnight vertical launch in the sheer cost of keeping the lights on.
And you know, this perfectly illustrates the hidden, honestly fascinating sequence of how a fuel shortage sneaks right onto your dinner plate. See, natural gas isn't just used for power. It's absolutely essential for making urea, which is a crucial ingredient in fertilizer. And with over 30% of global urea exported from the Gulf, when that gas supply stops, fertilizer costs absolutely spike. Then, when farmers suddenly can't afford that fertilizer, the yields of basic crops like wheat and corn plummet, leading directly to global food insecurity. It's this perfect, terrifying chain reaction from a distant strait all the way to your grocery store aisle.
Moving right along to part three, Asia's energy crunch, desperate stopgap measures.
Now, why focus on Asia? Well, because under normal circumstances, a massive 84% of the crude oil passing through the strait heads directly to their markets. So with that supply choked off, we are seeing some incredibly drastic stopgap measures. Over in Bangladesh, just to save power, they closed universities early, implemented 4-day work weeks, and literally forced shops to close up by 7 p.m. The Philippines went so far as to completely declare a state of national energy emergency. But get this, look at Thailand. Amidst all the chaos, 57 million liters of fuel being transported by sea just vanished into thin air, a massive logistical mystery. Yet, on the flip side of that chaos, a Thai oil company launched this brilliant fry-to-fly program. It allows ordinary citizens to actually swap their used cooking oil for diesel or petrol, which the company then turns into sustainable aviation fuel. People are doing literally whatever it takes just to keep society moving.
Let's look at part four, ripple effects across continents, the uneven economic divide.
The crucial takeaway here is this deep, highly uneven economic divide. On one hand, energy producers are experiencing a massive windfall. The United States, insulated by its own domestic production, actually hit a record 12.9 million barrels a day in exports, really profiting from the global scramble. But then, on the other side, you have energy importers, like the Philippines, a nation that relies on the Middle East for 98% of its oil. For them, it's a total system shock. Literally, one nation's crisis becomes another nation's economic boom.
But insulation definitely doesn't mean immunity. Even in major producing countries like the US, specific vulnerable sectors faced catastrophic failures. Take aviation. Jet fuel prices in North America spiked by 95%. The result? Spirit Airlines, a major low-cost carrier, ceased all operations entirely. The sheer cost of fuel simply crushed their business model.
And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, South Africa's record hikes, ground zero at the local pump.
Let's walk through exactly how this builds into a perfect storm, step by step. In March 2026, global tension pushed Brent crude over $100 a barrel. Then in April, the local South African currency, the rand, weakened significantly against the US dollar. So buying that already expensive oil suddenly cost even more in local terms. Finally, on May 6th, the government had to implement a slate levy. That's basically a mechanism to recover money lost when the retail price doesn't match the actual import cost. 3 separate factors totally compounding to create a massive local pricing disaster.
Look at the brutal reality in these numbers. This is what everyday drivers and businesses woke up to. Petrol jumped by over 3 rand a liter. But check out diesel, an increase of nearly 620 rand per liter. If you're a logistics company running a whole fleet of trucks or just a regular person filling up an 80-liter tank, you are suddenly paying over 260 rand more in a single stroke.
And you know what makes those numbers even more shocking? These massive price hikes happened despite sweeping government tax relief. The South African government actually reduced the petrol levy by 3 rand and brought the diesel levy all the way down to 0. The underlying global costs had just become so overwhelmingly severe that even taking the tax completely off diesel couldn't stop the price from rocketing up. Which brings us right to our ultimate takeaway. Fuel remains one of the biggest cost drivers in the economy. It sounds simple, right? But it is so profound, because when diesel jumps by over 6 rand, the cost of transporting literally every single item in your local grocery store goes up. The bread, the milk, the vegetables, they all travel on diesel-powered trucks. So a geopolitical conflict in the Middle East doesn't just make your commute a little more expensive, it guarantees that your basic cost of living is about to surge.
All of this leaves us with one final, provocative question. We've seen shipping lanes close, prices explode by 140%, entire airlines collapse, and countries forced to ration power. So how long can our highly optimized, interconnected global supply chains really sustain these extreme pressures before completely breaking apart? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.